Hey everyone, today I'm joined by Mike Schmidt and AJ Rivera. They are the founders of Agency Coach, where they help agency owners improve all facets of their business. For a bit more background, Mike was the founder of the agency Anchorwave, which AJ later joined to lead sales. Now, that business is able to run without them as they work on other ventures. Mike and AJ are also the creators of Funnel Hub, which we will get into in this episode. And in this episode, we discuss the greatest challenge agency owners face today and what to do about it, why there's never been a better time to own an agency, the biggest domino agencies can knock over to jumpstart their business success, and more. Today's episode is brought to you by ZenPilot. There are lots of tools out there for agencies to manage projects, but any project issues aren't usually caused by the tool, they're from your own processes. ZenPilot helps agencies implement their project management tools while streamlining operations, so your team can move from chaos to clarity. You can see for yourself at zenpilot.com. And now let's get into the chat with Mike and AJ. It's easier than ever to start an agency, but it's only getting harder to stand out and keep it alive. Join me as we explore the strategies agencies are using today to secure a better tomorrow. This is Agency Forward. What are you seeing as the biggest struggle for agencies right now?
You know, I think one of the common things that we hear people come to us in our world with is usually around the topic of leads. Like, where do I find the next customer? Where do I find the next opportunity? And it's funny because like there is an abundant world of opportunity out there for all of us, and every agency that exists can be big and successful. Yet there is this kind of perception that like, how do I find that customer? How do I get those leads? And I think the big issue that we try and figure out is like, you know, why do they perceive that there's such a lead problem out there, right? Like, why is there such a perception that they can't go out there and have those conversations with those folks? And the reality is that there's a ton of opportunity for everybody.
Yeah, 100%. I think most agency owners just don't realize that all leads start as a cold lead, right? And then they go to warm and then they go to hot. And the agencies who win are the agencies that are able to warm up their leads and make them hot. There's a lot of agency owners that work 100% and operate based off of hot leads, right? These are the leads that referrals and word of mouth that get sent over to them. And I think what they don't realize is that lead was also cold, right? Somebody just warmed it up for them. And so when we see agencies start to go out there and do lead generation and start to build their email list, the piece that they're missing there is they're trying to treat that cold lead like the hot lead that landed on their plate, right? And what they don't realize is they need to spend a little bit of time nurturing that lead, right? Warming it up, helping them understand who you are, what you're about, how you can help them so that they raise their hand and ask for help. And that's when you can turn that into an actual customer.
Right. Yeah. I think when I was running an agency, those are some of the things we noticed, right? You have your ideal customer profile and you're like, this is the perfect person to work with me, but very few people are already there. And so we kind of work this cold customer profile. And it's like, well, what do they look like before they even know about us?
Yep.
And like what types? So how do we have to kind of educate them in order to turn them into that ideal customer?
100%.
And made a world of difference. I guess, are you also seeing within that lead gen? So they're kind of treating everyone as hot leads coming in right away. Is there, WordStream did a study right 2 years ago, and I keep bringing this up on this podcast because it's so like mind blowing to me. Right. They found like 60% of prospects going into agencies were from referrals, and only about 14% were actually coming in from deliberate marketing efforts. And so for me, it's mind blowing, right? Like we're marketing agencies, we're supposed to be, killing it for marketing for all of our clients. Right. But then when we look at ourselves, it's like, why is this so hard? And I guess that's my question back to you guys. Like, why do you think that struggle is there?
Well, it's like, I firmly believe like this is the best time in history to own a web or digital marketing agency. And like our services are in super demand, right? Even in a slower economy or one where like, the news is shouting that the world's going to fall apart, right? Like it becomes even more necessary. And the reason why is because business owners are worried about their own business and they're in the future. And so if they meet someone that they perceive can help solve with that issue or protect them from the unknowns of what might be coming down the road, that is of massive value. So I think, the reason why so many people operate on these referrals and word of mouth is just because this is an in-demand business. Like, this is not something where we've got to go search very far and wide to find someone that needs our services. And I think the agencies that are in lack and don't have those leads are buying into the rhetoric. They're buying into the story that business is hard and this is tough. But the ones that recognize that you could literally walk out your front door and into town, and every business that's there wants what you know, right? And they want your help. And so I think you said a really important keyword that we lean on, which is educate, right? And when you are the person who brings the information and brings the education to that prospective client, you're the one that's assumed to know the answer. And I think the attitude of a lot of agencies, especially new ones, is they kind of are waiting for someone to hand them the opportunity and say, hey, I need your help. And they've hung their shingle. Oh, you do websites. Oh, you run Facebook ads. Oh, you can help me with an AI chatbot. And they assume that advertisement, right? Which is funny because we're marketers. We're like, we know that's only sectioning off a slice of the market. We need to help them understand what it is we do, who we help, and through education has been one of the biggest ways that we found that we can not only attract people into our world, but help them understand what it is we do, to the point where they then say, hey, could you help me with that thing? Which we all know is way different than us as a, quote unquote salesperson being like, hey, I can help you with that thing, right? The trick is, how do you get someone to ask you as an agency for help? Right. And we know that when they're coming in that way, that the frame is right. And that gives us a good solid ground to then explore how we might be able to help and put together a deal.
Right. It's always better when they have the cash already out as they're showing up to talk to you.
Right. And then here's the thing, is they all have the cash, right? It's whether or not they're telling you they have the cash. Right.
It's like, exactly. And so that education can also serve as a differentiator for your marketing agency. How are you recommending agencies get their educational materials out in front of the right people to be able to do that?
Yeah. I mean, I think if our grandparents knew the access we had to eyeballs today, and they knew that we could just make a post and that our prospective audience would see that, or pay for an ad for exactly who needs to see it, or all these technologies available to us, and they knew that existed and we weren't using it, they probably would slap us across the face. Like, what are you talking about? Do you know that in today's day, in their day, right, that we've got to meet with the advertising company and the newspaper's ad sales guy, and then we got to develop a plan, and then we got to hire a graphic artist, and they got to plot it out, and then they got to bring it to the place and print it, and then they got to put it in a truck and drive it to somebody's front lawn, and that person's got to pick it up off their lawn and open it and look at the ad and then understand what it is that you do, right? I think we are lazy because it's so easy to do that. And so, but bear in mind, when AJ and I started our agency, even what we have access to now didn't exist, right?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, we started the agency in 2003 in a time where there was no Google, there was no Facebook, right? Yahoo was the number one search engine. It was a totally different time. It wasn't as easy for us to get our message out, which is why, we relied on a lot of the face-to-face, networking and, getting to know people in town and being part of business groups and going to the breakfast mixers and doing all those different things. And, over time, it became easier for us to build relationships online and put our, face out there and our brand out there and help educate people about the services that we offer. But more importantly, help them understand how the things that we do allow them to get more customer activity, right? Because I think a lot of agency owners miss the fact that, nobody really wants to buy SEO. They don't want to buy Facebook ads. They don't want reputation management. They want more customers, right? And so if you can help them connect the dots and show them how those things that you're doing will result in them getting more customer activity, the conversation becomes a whole heck of a lot easier, right? We take them through a pretty thorough process of helping them understand how the work that we do gets them customers, because then, typically when we're going through a process, you're seeing a lot of head nodding, right? And the small business owners getting it. And, there's been so many times when they're like, gosh, I finally understand digital marketing now, right? I understand why that guy in my BNI keeps telling me to do SEO. I get why he kept saying that, but now I do understand where it fits in my overall online strategy. And they always say like a confused buyer never buys, right? And I'm of the opinion that an informed one always does.
Hmm. Yeah, that's a good way to. The more clarity you can bring to the conversation, the easier it is for them to take that next step.
Yeah.
So I did want to get into your agency. You guys kind of answered my questions already, but I guess if you were to start AnchorWave today, what are some of the things that would be completely different? Like you would just take this approach right from day one because of the new tech and assets that you have.
Yeah, probably the biggest thing I think that we would do differently is have an intense focus on building recurring revenue. For a long, long time, we went out there and we chased like the big upfront one-time projects, right? And I was out there trying to sell a bigger website and then, the more expensive website. And, we went from charging $5,000 for a site to 10 to 20 to 30. I sold a $100,000 website, and the truth was that that money came and went, right? Like I remember, the $100,000 website that I sold was for a casino in town. It took me probably 6-7 months to close that thing. And we were super excited about it. We're high-fiving. We're like, cool. Like the days of us worrying about payroll and worrying about expenses are gone. We just put all this money in the bank. But guess what? Like we went out, we built that site. We hired some additional resources. We wanted to knock it out of the park, which we did, right? We won awards for this thing. But only a few months later, we're looking at the accounts again, and it's like, geez, where the heck did that money go, right? I felt like we're right back in the spot that we were just a few months prior. And I remember going to our bookkeeper and saying, what the heck just happened? We sold the biggest project we've ever sold, and now I feel like we're in the same exact spot we were just a few months ago. And our accountant ran a report. It was a report that totally changed our lives and our perspective. And it was a report that showed the top 20 clients that we had over the past 4 or 5 years, right? And I was wholeheartedly expecting Casino del Sol to be number one on that list, right? And guess what? It was barely in the top 20. It was like 19 or something like that. And then I go to the top and I'm like, who the heck is giving us more money than that? And guess who it was? It was the HVAC company that had been paying us $1,500, $2,000 a month. It was the orthodontist that had been paying us $2,000 a month for that entire time, right? And so what was cool about that was like, I couldn't go out there and find another casino, right? Like over and over and over again, month after month. We don't have a ton of those here. But what I could find was all those people that were at the top of that list that had been paying us, recurring revenue over a longer period of time. And so that's when we realized, man, our target's been wrong this whole time, right? Instead of high-fiving for that big project, I should have been high-fiving for the $2,000 a month digital marketing contract that I sold. And so once we realized that, man, we shifted our complete focus to trying to sell the services that create recurring revenue. Sure, we still had the big upfront projects, but they weren't our focus. They weren't definitely where we wanted to start with people. They were kind of the icing on the cake, right? And it didn't take us long from that point to build our recurring revenue to a point where, guess what? On the first of the month, I had all these cards I could charge and all of our expenses were covered. Our payroll was covered. We had enough money to pay ourselves. And I'll tell you what, like your entire world changes when you enter the month with everything already taken care of, right? Because now, guess what? We don't have to like go into it figuring out what Hail Mary we're going to throw this month to try to make ends meet, right? We can work on the things that we want to work on. We can work on the business. We can follow our passion and do the things that we need to do in order to scale this thing, rather than just constantly always worrying about like where we're going to get the next buck, right?
And it puts you in a proactive kind of mode, right? Now you can actually work on the next thing that's going to set you up for success.
Yeah, and it took us about 12 years to have that realization, right? So if you're talking about what we would have done differently, man, if we would have started that focus
way sooner, like one, we would have saved ourselves a lot of heartache, I'll tell you that much, and slept a lot better for a lot of years. But we got there and we made the shifts and got the business into a lot more stable position. And that's what's honestly allowed us to be able to step out of the agency, right? And promote our vice president to CEO so she could keep running this machine while we could focus on agency coach, where we help teach this sort of thing to other agency owners so that they don't have to take 20 years to get to where we've got.
Yeah, hard-earned lessons. LTV is definitely something underappreciated because, like you said, you see that low ticket compared to a massive website sale.
Yeah.
I guess when you're working with agencies, coaching agencies, do you have any approach for using that single project as a way to lead into longer term engagements afterwards?
Yeah, I think that's probably the mistake that people go into it with, is that they think, okay, I'm going to do this one-time project. We're going to build this big website or whatever it is, and then I'm going to turn that into recurring revenue, right? And here's what we experience. I think a lot of other people do too is, excuse me, we go and we sell the big website. It's a fairly involved process, right? We get to the end of that thing, and guess what the client doesn't want to do now? See your face, right? Like, this is long enough of a project. And also, we have the best of intentions to go back and resell those clients on other services. But guess what we don't want to do? See their face, right? And I'm being a little silly here, because obviously there's opportunity there. But what we find ourselves doing is, when we're on this hamster wheel of always having to find new cash projects, right? Their monthly commitment to me, whatever happens after that project, isn't going to be as significant as that one-time cash project that I have my eyeballs on. I've been working on kind of on the side while this other project is kind of moving along and coming to completion. So it's really about breaking the habit of selling those big ticket items and shifting your brain and saying, listen, everything I bring in, I want it to be recurring, right? You know, and you look at a lot of businesses out there, like, that's the way that this works, is that the subscription model is what they build their whole business around. And I think agencies are missing an opportunity not to do that. But why do they do that? Because we have bills, we have expenses. It's like, I'm trying to decide between, am I going to sign them up on a $2,000 a month plan, right? Which is $24,000 a year, which is great. Or there's this client who's willing to start a $15K project with me right now. Do I want $2K or $15K, right? And we're weighing these two things back and forth. And every time we're picking the $15K, taking the short-term win, because we have near-term obligations to meet, which makes total sense. But then we're cheating ourselves out of the longer-term building up. It's like, I think of it like Lego pieces, right? Recurring revenue is like small Legos that build up into this big wall of recurring revenue, but it does take time to build that. And the question is, how do you, if you're in a position where you have to make ends meet, which we all are, how can we balance the need for new projects that are coming in while also making sure that we build that recurring revenue? And it's like focusing in on knowing that, a couple concerted months of dedicated work of building your recurring revenue adds up really quickly, right? So the best example I have is, have you ever looked at your bank statement, right? And you're looking and you see how much it adds up to, how much you spent, and you're like, how did that happen? I see $1 here, I see $15 there, I see $100 here. Like, how did that add up to $5,000? There's no way, right?
Right.
And then you go and do the math, and you're like, this must be wrong. The bank must have made a mistake. And you're like, nope. Guess what? Small numbers, a lot of them add up to big numbers, right? And while that sucks, maybe on your credit card, when you're the one that's invoicing your clients for $500 a month here, $1,500 here, $2,500 here, $300 there, $3,000 there, right? That starts to add up to something that's pretty significant in a short amount of time. And so it's about being focused in on that and having a plan to enroll your clients in those services from the get-go, right? As opposed to always putting that website project in front. I mean, that's us. Like, our identity as an agency for a long time, we're web designers, and that's why we showed up to the world, right? And I think that if you're a web designer, every project and client you meet is a web design project, unfortunately, right? But that's the reprogram that we got to do. Right. Or we need to figure out, how can we sell this web project as a recurring opportunity as opposed to just a one-time thing, right? So there's lots of ways to do this, but recurring is what unlocks that power. I think agencies tend to say yes to a lot of client requests and projects that come their way. Like, it doesn't matter what it is. It's like, we're resourceful people. I think agencies are among the most resourceful people on the planet. And when a client has a project that they're dangling in front of us, like, we want to figure it out. And the thing is, if it's good money attached to that project, we're even more excited about it, because we know that that's going to help us reach our goals that much faster. But the thing is, if we have to say yes to it if we don't have recurring revenue. When you have enough recurring revenue, you get to be choosy about and selective about the projects that you take on, right? The reason why we say projects that are maybe more complex and more like, we call them snowflake projects, right? That they're one of a kinds that, we're saying yes to it more because we're excited about the cash attached to it, as opposed to being a really good fit. And then we rely on our strengths as being able to figure stuff out to get the project done. But it robs us from the opportunity to build that recurring revenue. But if you have a ton of recurring revenue and it's covering your expenses and it's putting money in your pocket and you're putting profit in your pocket, well, then guess what? You can start to say no to the projects that aren't a perfect and good fit for you. And I think that's a trap that agencies find themselves in. They find themselves trading their time for money, trapped by the very businesses that they've created because they have a lack of consistent revenue, a lack of recurring revenue, which if they just would have focused in on each client coming in, hey, come on in, sign this contract, and I'm going to ask you to commit to 6 or 12 months of this service with me. And you start building those Lego pieces up, and suddenly you have a business that's a lot less stressful, a lot less variable. You're not in these feast or famine business cycles where you're really cash rich, followed by periods of time where you have no money. And that's why we say it's like recurring revenue fixes so many things. Maybe not everything, but it fixes most agency issues. But it's still puzzling sometimes when we'll meet a new agency owner and their awareness of that. They might want more recurring revenue, but there's really no action happening to bring that in.
Yeah. So a couple of things I want to highlight from that. I think if you can set up your contract correctly, right, for the recurring revenue wise, you've just lowered that barrier for entry for your customers as well. Yeah. Where now I don't have to spend $50K all at once, right, or over this project, totally. $2K a month, and knowing that maybe there's a parachute clause, like, hey, if we're not hitting goals by month 3, like we can bounce, right? Like that's a much easier sale, be able to get someone in the door. But one of the things I've coached some of my clients on when kind of weighing different opportunities, it was because we did have some single project, like we knew it probably wouldn't lead to any recurring revenue. And it's like, do you want to put so much of your company's effort on this one project right now? And so we kind of used a scale of like how many opportunities could it lead to? So like it's not just looking at the money, but like would over delivering for these people help? We've had like franchises who by helping that franchise, now we get access to all of those subsidiary websites.
Absolutely.
And so it's like, okay, well, there's something else to look at here, but we're still looking for the recurring revenue, right? At its heart, I guess. So I want to kind of shift gears though. As a fellow 2 Comma Club award winner, I think you guys have a couple more than me. But what inspired you guys to kind of get started with like Funnel Hub and building that out?
Yeah, it's a funny story, right?
Yeah, so we joined Russell's inner circle way before it was like cool to be an inner circle, right? It was just a bunch of like funnel nerds that were going to Boise to like talk shop. And I remember when Mike and I first joined, like we didn't quite know what to expect. We were pretty new to the funnel world, but we just knew like we fell in love with the idea of funnels, and we're like, we wanted to go as fast as possible. So we saw this Russell guy and we're like, let's go check it out. And we joined his inner circle. We get to Boise, we go down to the event center downtown. And I remember we got there like super early because we were like really excited. There's like nobody around, right? But somebody had already set up like the tables in there. And so there was like name cards on all the different seats. And of course, Mike and I are like sitting there bored, like looking at the names, like, none of these sound familiar, right? So we start Googling everybody in there, and it was just incredible that what we were finding. It's like sometimes we couldn't find them at all, right? And we're like, how the heck could they pay this much to be in here? But I can't even find this person online, right? They have no digital footprint. Sometimes we would find something, but we thought it was what they did. But then later when they went on stage, they spoke about something totally different, right? Or sometimes we'd find like the application for their mastermind, but I still couldn't even find what the heck they did, right? So we're finding things that, didn't really answer the question as to who this person was. And, it was in that moment that Mike and I realized like, hey, a lot of these people have not done a good job of like communicating who they're on the line. They haven't put any focus or emphasis on, making that spot where people could find out who they are, and for a long time, Russell said websites were dead, right? And I remember one of the first times that we went to Funnel Hacking Live, we were in the front row and he said, everyone pull out your phone and everybody tweet, hashtag websites are dead. And I'm looking at Mike and the rest of our team. I'm like, do not do that. Because I just sold a website yesterday, right? I don't want that customer calling and saying, what the heck? But I think because, he was obviously throwing rocks at websites because he wanted everyone to believe in funnels. And I think for a long time, people bought into that. And because of that, they didn't think they needed a website. They didn't think they needed this spot where, you can communicate who you are, what you're about, who you serve, the services you offer, all those different things. And so Mike and I recognized that there was a gap there, right? And so we took this one step further. We started doing keyword research for those people's names, right? Their name, their company name, their courses. And what we found was that there was a ton of search volume, right? Like some of these people had over 1 million searches, but for branded terms per year. And when you search for those terms, you couldn't find them, right? And it's just like, holy crap, there's like a huge hole in their bucket right here, right? And so Mike and I knew that like we wanted to get out there. We wanted to teach people that, hey, they need to pay attention to their online presence. There needs to be something there when people search for you, because if you can control what they see when they search for you, then you control the sentiment of how they feel, right? And so we decided that we wanted to present this idea of what we named a funnel hub to Russell. And I remember going into it, I'm like, gosh, he's going to kick us out of like the inner circle, right? We're going to go in here and tell him that, we think websites are a big part of, any business, including a funnel driven one. And so, we started going through the slides, and we were only a couple slides in, and he's like, look, I've got to stop you right here.
He's going to kick us out. He's kicking us out.
I'm like, this is it, right? And he goes, I don't know where you're going with this, but I already want to give you money. And I'm like, kicking Mike under the table. I'm like, holy crap, he likes this idea, right? And so we weren't even planning to like pitch him. But at the end of what we presented to him, he's like, how do I buy one of these from you, right? And so he gave us a card on the spot. We ended up building our first funnel hub, or actually our second funnel hub. We had done like a test to kind of show him what it was about for Russell. And then, it really caught fire from there. A lot of people that were inside of the mastermind saw the value in that. It was pretty easy, right? We're like, look, dude, like people are, there's this many people searching for you online. When they do that, they're not finding you, right? So why are these people searching for you? It's probably people that are getting into your funnel. They're at the point where their credit card's in hand, right? And they're probably doing one last search to see if you're legit. And guess what? They're not finding anything. So card's going right back into the pocket. And so it was easy for people to see that and understand that, hey, all these people are searching, not finding anything. What needs to go there? Mike and I decided to make the whole funnel hub strategy very much centered around expert secrets, right? Because that book, I think, is the definitive guide to like how to represent yourself online, right? And how to build a brand and how to build a movement and how to persuade people to take action and how to throw rocks and, all the different things that he's taught us. And it's really just about putting those strategies. Like I know we've read that book and we've thought through a lot of the things that he talks about there and we've taken notes, but guess what? That document ends up in our Google Drive where nobody else could see it, right? Like doesn't do any good there for us to get really clear on who we serve and what we're about if nobody else can read it. And so it's really just taking that stuff and putting it online. And that's where Funnel Hub was born. And, it's been really, really awesome to see where it's gone from there. Russell's gone on to actually build it in ClickFunnels 2.0, which was super awesome. I remember we got that box. He's like, hey, I've got a secret and you guys can't tell anyone, but would you guys be okay if we like built Funnel Hub into ClickFunnels? And we're like, yeah, you can do that, right? And so it's just been really cool. He's included it in Traffic Secrets as I forget what secret it is, 17 or
17, I think.
Something like that. But yeah, and it's just led to obviously a lot of visibility for us. We still feel like we're just scratching the surface with that. There's so many people out there that aren't aware of what that is. And we want to get louder about it for sure. And I think it could change the way that the websites are built, or at least how people think about what should go on a website.
Right. I mean, it was even, I think a couple of weeks ago, I got hit with someone's ad that went through a funnel and I didn't have time to do whatever. And Facebook refreshed on me in the amount of time. So now I'm trying to search for this person to figure out. It's like, I'm pretty sure I had their first name and I knew what the offer was. Couldn't find anything. And so,
it's amazing, isn't it? Right. Like we put so much effort and energy into getting people into a funnel, into a webinar, into something. And then we forget that they're humans and that they sometimes need to find you again, even if it's not about trust and credibility. It's just like, how do I go back and refer it? I know when we built Garrett J. White's Funnel Hub, right? Like, AJ has been in his programs and was trying to refer Garrett's programs to his friends who were asking about it. And there was no place to send them. The other day I sat on one of Frank Kern's webinars and it was great. And I wanted to send it to a friend who like should also watch this thing. And I'm like, I have no idea how to do that. And I'm like, Frank, you're missing the opportunity here. And it's like, I mean, he's a legend, obviously. But the point is that there's these holes that exist. But how do we get people back into our world? And, people will say, well, my ads are not working or this isn't converting. And it's like, you're running a business on 10% or less of the people coming into your world doing some sort of transaction with you, maybe more like 3%. Well, what's happened to the other 97% of people? And again, you're not going to convert everyone, but like if you're putting marketing dollars into something, why are you not making an effort to get back in front of them, making it easy to do so? Just because the funnel is the number one place to turn a customer or a lead into a customer doesn't mean that a website isn't a part of the buying journey or experience, right?
Right. Yeah. And this is something I think growing in popularity across the rest of the marketing sphere, where it's, you have dark social and all these other things. And it's like, we know someone's going to hear about you on a podcast, or they're going to hear about you from, this other asset. And so like not giving them the opportunity to find you in the places where they're going to be looking for you. It's just, it's mind blowing. Right. Like, why would we not do that?
It'd be like in the old days, like showing up to a networking meeting and not having any business cards. Oh, right. You'll find me. Just, I hang out over here at this coffee shop. Come grab me. Right. No. It's like that's what people are doing today, is that they're going out and they're putting ads out. They're posting on social media. And what you just described, Chris, is like so common, right? I think we can all relate to that. I saw the thing. I thought it was cool. I didn't save it. Facebook's not like, I can't find it. And even though there's a place where I can see where I interacted with ads, like I still can't find it and I'm searching for it. And then by that time, it's like, I'm done. Hopefully I'll enter their targeting audience again and I'll see it. But by then they risk me not being interested in that thing anymore. Right. So it's like, the waste is massive and it's such a simple fix.
Well, and it's just crazy that I can't remember who it was now, but they potentially lost a sale because one of my daughters was burning pancakes on the stove. And it's like, what? Like I had to leave and you just lost a sale because of that. Anyways.
Yeah. Life literally gets in the way. Yeah.
Yeah. So you guys also have your agency mastermind, and anytime you have a mastermind, right? You're bringing a bunch of people together, common goal. We're going to work towards figuring this stuff out. What are some of the patterns, I guess, that you're seeing with the challenges that they're bringing up right now?
Yeah. One of the big things that we see, so this is like, it's funny because a lot of things in our life tend to revolve around the same stuff, and maybe it's just our vantage point on things. But along the lines of the Funnel Hub being a place where it's about capturing that attention and getting people back into your funnels, I think another big hole that we see in agency buckets, but also just businesses in general, is what are they doing to actually build their own lake of opportunity? And so what I mean by that is like, are you keeping a CRM full of your leads and prospects and all the people that you interact with? If you're running ads or you're doing lead magnets, like where do those people actually live and go? Number one. But number two is, what are you doing to get back in front of them and use, like, email marketing is like one of my favorite ways to grow and to scale a business. And I think so many people are missing out on that opportunity because it's like, it's maybe boring or it's old. They're like, oh, email? Like, what is this, 1998? Like, give me a break. But it's like, email is such a powerful tool because it's one of the few and last things that we can truly own and control without having to pay somebody else in order to access it. Right. And so what we've seen as a pattern in our groups is how to actually be consistent with that. Right. And that's the key. So we've kind of developed something that we call a feed and fish, which is basically a really easy way to think about how you should be interacting with your email list. Right. So our philosophy is 3 feed to 1 fish. And this is kind of like borrowed from like Gary Vaynerchuk. If you ever read like Jab, 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 Right Hook, where it's like give value and then ask, right? But if you're on most people's email list, what do you see? It's like ask, right? It's offer. I want to sell you. And so I think most businesses are failing to recognize that email is not a one-to-many platform. It's a one-to-one platform that we get to do lots and lots of times. So like our philosophy is writing email in a way that it's like, I'm writing to you, Chris, right? One to one, even though there might be like 45 Chris's on my list, but I'm really taking that attitude. And the idea is that we will send those 3 feed emails, which tend to be like, it's like resources. It might be education. It might be something nurture and sharing some vulnerabilities, right? And then there's an offer, which is, hey, would you like this thing that I do? And we've seen an incredible amount of success with that because I think it's zigging where everyone else is zagging, right? Like everyone else is treating their email list like a booty call. Our friend Yada Golden says that. Are you treating your list like a booty call? And you're just like, anytime you need cash, you're like, let's go to the list. Or even like Dan Kennedy, he's like, let's go invoice the herd, and that's his way of saying go send an email out to your list and make an offer to them, right? Which there's nothing wrong with that. But it's like, if you want those people to listen to the offer, what are you doing to build a relationship? And so I think people miss the opportunity to realize that actually with email, you can certainly build a relationship with folks. And so that's something we've just seen a ton of success with. It's that, most people have built a lake of some sort and they're probably not talking to it, right? If you do a lot of in-person networking event, maybe your desk has all those stacks of business cards, right? I don't know if anybody's done that before, right? It's like, why are those not in a place where you can meet people, can have continued conversations with people? The people that you meet in passing, why are they not someone that you're investing in and nurturing? The people that you proposed to that never hired you, like, why would you not keep talking to them? Even your existing clients, like people ask me, well, Mike, am I supposed to feed and fish my existing clients? Well, they're already my clients. I'm like, absolutely. Do you think building a relationship with these people is a smart idea? Like, do you think having a good relationship is going to keep them or help them buy more from you? And the answer is obviously, right? So it's like building that. And so that pattern we've seen is that, folks already likely have and done a ton of work to build this list. And all they've done is they've heaped it into the garbage and pretended like it doesn't exist. And they're waiting for those hot leads to come in. Kind of how we started our conversation today. Like, people perceive that leads is their biggest problem. I'd venture a guess that they believe it is, but it's actually not the true problem. The true problem is they have no lead warming machine. They have no relationship building that's happening with folks. And so they're having to run their business on those hot leads and on those word of mouth, because they're assuming that if you come into my world and you don't buy right away, that you're dead to me. Right? Which when we analyze that and think about that, that's complete nonsense. Of course, people need to be nurtured, and there needs to be trust that's built over time. But I think as agencies, we've all done campaigns for clients where the client might have come back and said, the leads suck. They're no good, right? Well, guess what, guys? All leads freaking suck. 100% of them. All leads suck. They all suck. They all suck until you nurture them enough that they cease to become a lead, and then they become a prospect, right? I think too many people run ads or run any kind of marketing and attract leads, and they fool themselves thinking that they're doing prospecting, right? There's a difference between a lead and a prospect, right? A lead is cold. A lead is, maybe in your target market, but is uninterested and not in the sales process, right? And that's what lead generation is like. But when the client says, or you say the leads suck, we'll say, yeah, they do suck. So what are you doing to warm them up? And that feed and fish process is an excellent way to do that, right? And squeeze the most out of those leads and build those relationships, more or less on autopilot.
Right. Yeah. Email lists it's surprising that they're underappreciated, right? Like they've been a thing for so long, and you get Slack comes around and says email's dead. And it's like, no, so people are like, okay, I guess I don't have to market here anymore. But we were guilty of, when I was running an agency, of just hitting the list when we had an event coming up. Let's get people interested. Yeah. Now with my own coaching business, I've taken a different approach of just doing a weekly newsletter and providing as much value in that newsletter as possible. And it's just crazy where I can have 60+% open rates, as my average, with decent click-throughs on everything. If I take that same post and put it on like LinkedIn, it's hit or miss whether the algorithm wants to give me attention right now. Yeah. But I know, like, I'm literally getting replies from people saying, hey, this was awesome. Thank you for providing this value. It's like, I know that person, as soon as I have something that they need, we're going to be a perfect match. It's like, 100%. Just come on, people, use a list, own your audience. You got it. So something that I very much appreciate about you guys is that you understand the tactics, the strategy, the tools that can go along with everything, but you also talk a lot about the mindset. And I think so. Mindset's one of the most important things as far as like my coaching, my philosophies on coaching, because if you're not thinking about the problem right, it doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter what tools you try to include, right? Everything is just going to fall flat. And I'm sure you guys have seen it with in the military. We had these gear lovers. I won't use it was a different term that rhymes, but I don't want to be canceled for this. So, but it was just these people who would buy tons of gear because they thought it looked awesome and it was really cool, and they put it all over their kit. And it's like, God, you just added like 30 pounds of equipment to your uniform and we got to go ruck 20 miles. You sure you want to do that? Right? Like, you're not going to use it. Like, you don't need that set of binoculars for this. Like, it's going to be okay. Right. But I see that with agencies, and I'm sure you guys see it as well, where it's like, oh, well, I just need to buy these things, right? The software, this product, and it's going to revolutionize everything. How do you get people to shift to how they're thinking about their agency so that they're not just reliant on tools and actually thinking about the problem the way they should be?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And it is something that we run across all the time, right? I tend to think that like entrepreneurship is like the purest form of personal development, right? Like, your business is only going to ever grow to the level that you're at, right? And you're always the bottleneck in your agency. And so Mike and I have spent a ton on investing in ourselves and masterminds and coaching and programs and all these different things, because we knew that we constantly needed to reinvent ourselves and continue to grow in order for our agency to do that. And so what we see in our world a lot of times is that you're right. So many people are focused on one thing, which is capabilities, right? Like, if I learn this new thing, I just need this new book, or I just need this new course, or I just need this new piece of software, and then that's it. And then things are going to change. But what they don't realize is there's a lot of other things that they need to focus on as well, right? I'm not sure if you've ever heard of the DILTS model for change, but what this represents is like all the different things that need to happen in order to drive true change in your life, right? Capabilities is one of those things, right? But you need to have a clear vision, right? You need to have an identity that's in alignment with that vision, right? Understand, who do I need to be in order to achieve that result? You need to take an inventory of your beliefs, right? You need to have the right belief system. Like, if you think sales are bad, or you think money is evil, or any of these things, like, there's no sales book in the world you're going to read that's going to help you get better at sales, because you have this internal false belief that's bad, right? And you need to get past that. It's your behaviors and your habits, right? What are the things that you're doing day in and day out? If you're staying up all night, doom scrolling and not getting rest, then it's going to be really hard for you to perform the next day, right? Capabilities, and then your environment, right? Like, who are the people that you're hanging around? Do they lift you up? Do they bring you down? What are the other things that you're allowing into your subconscious? Is it the news, right? That's constantly telling you about how everything's going wrong in the world, right? It's hard to come from a place of confidence when internally you're scared. You're scared because of all this stuff that you're allowing into your psyche, right? That's driving you on autopilot, really. And so we tell this story about, there's a guy that's in our mastermind that ran 100-mile ultra marathon, right? And it's pretty incredible, right? Like, that's like, man, can you imagine, like, if you decided to do that, right? Like, there are some very clear things that you would do in order to make that happen, right? You wouldn't just show up to the race and expect to finish, So if we think about those things I talked about, his vision was to run the 100-mile ultra marathon. His identity was like, he needed to take on the identity of a runner, right? Like, he said he was never really considered himself good at sports or athletic or any of those things, but he needed to change that, right? He needed to make his whole world, like everything he read, all those things, videos he was watching, everything revolved around running while he was training, because he needed to be a runner to finish this. His beliefs. Yeah. He needed to believe that he could finish, right? He needed to believe that even if he didn't, that he was going to enjoy, the process. It was his capabilities, right? He needed to hire a coach. He hired a coach that helped him with his diet and understanding, like, what do I need to put in my body to fuel it the right way so that it can endure the 100 miles? He needed to learn different mental techniques, right? Like, I know I was training for a marathon or half marathon, and when you hit that point, your body's like, you're going to have a heart attack, you're going to have a heart attack, you're going to die, stop, right? Like, you need to be able to learn techniques that are going to get you past that. He needed to recognize his environment, right? He needed to understand, like, first off, you need a buy-in from his wife and kids. When you're running that much, you've got to train a ton. You've got to run miles and miles and miles every single day and hours. Imagine if every single time you came home, your wife's giving you the cold shoulder, or your kids aren't talking to you, right? It's going to be hard for you to continue to train. And so like, it makes sense, right? That you would address all those things in expecting to complete this race. But how many people go into business and consider any of those things, right? How many of them consider what behaviors do I need to change? What coaches do I need to hire? What mind do I need? Who are the people I'm hanging out with? What needs to change about that? What needs to change about my beliefs, right? Like a lot of people don't do that, right? They just focus on the capabilities thing and that's it, when they need to really do all those things. Because guess what? Running a successful agency, running a 7-figure agency is just as crazy as running 100 miles. It is, right? And not a lot of people are able to get there. And it's because they haven't taken the time to really drive change in each one of those areas. And that's why they're falling short, is that they keep going back to those capabilities. They keep going back to, man, I need more knowledge. I need more knowledge. I need more training. I need this secret, hack or the secret tip that somebody's going to give me. And then my whole agency is going to change. Well, it's not, because you haven't changed your behaviors. You haven't changed your environment. You haven't changed your belief. You haven't changed your identity. And that's not going to allow for a lasting change.
Man, that was probably a masterclass in mindset change right there. So I got one more question for you guys before we get into the last one, or last couple here. What would you say is the biggest domino that agency owners could just knock over right now that would set up the rest of their business for success?
Yeah, I'd say putting yourself in the room of people who are doing that and succeeding or even struggling with it, right, is massive. Like the successes that we've had have been because we put ourselves in places where people were, all the things that AJ just talked about, that it wasn't just the capability. Of course, we got a good idea. Oh, we should do this funnel, or we should do this strategy, or we should use AI, whatever the current thing is, right? But it's those other things that we get to borrow from them, which is that environment. It's their beliefs. It's their visions. It's their habits that we could see them. Like we've all had those friends, right, that have inspired us. Like maybe it was outside of business, like this friend that crushed it with health, and like they're like a good example and a role model to follow when it comes to working out or going to the gym or something like that, right? Who are those people in your business life that you're surrounding yourself with at a deep level, right? And I'm not just talking about like, and it can certainly start in a podcast and it can certainly start in a book, but it's like, who are the people that are there holding you accountable and setting a good example for you? And that's the difference, because when you want to give up, right, who's there to say, hey, that's not an option, right? And here's how I felt when that happened to me, and here's what I did about it, right? And it just makes such a difference. And in this world of online, I think there's a tendency to focus too much on the online community, but where are you putting yourself in a real room to get that kind of support?
Awesome. AJ, you have a different answer?
So biggest domino for somebody. I mean, I think a lot of agency owners and business owners in general, I think they have this belief that they've got to figure things out on their own, right? Like we're big believers in taking shortcuts. We're big believers in finding somebody that's just a few steps ahead of us and hiring them, learning from them, right? Like it's such a shortcut when you can take somebody that has the experience and is in the spot where you want to be and is able to give you the things that you need to just go faster, right? Because I think for a long time, we were kind of trying to figure things out on our own, right? And then sometimes we'd walk in the wrong direction, 20 steps, only to realize, man, this is not right. And then we go next place, and then we go next place. And if we would have just found the right people and the right coaches and the right mentors a lot sooner, I think we could have accelerated, how fast we would be able to get to where we are now.
Right. Awesome. All right. I got 2 more questions for you guys. The first being, what book do you recommend every agency owner should read?
For me, it's Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod, because I think that is a big domino. I think if you can structure your morning the way that he teaches you and really make a habit of doing the things that he talks about, like the rest of your day is just so easy, right? It's like downhill from there. Like you've accomplished the toughest part. Anything that gets thrown at you that day doesn't really phase you, or you're able to get past it because you're just in such a strong place from the get-go, and you're just feeling good. And it's really an awesome way for somebody to start developing better habits about learning and health and all these different things that I think are key in running a successful business.
Yeah. I think for me, it's So one I keep on coming back to is E-Myth, Michael Gerber. And the premise of that book is understanding the difference between the work of growing a business and the work that your business does, because they're two separate things, right? If you're a web designer, there's the web design stuff, and then there's the business side of running the web design company, and understanding there's two different roles, and that if you want to have ultimate growth and success, that you have to really embrace the non-work part of your business, right? All the things that go into growing and scaling and managing and systems and processes and all the things that really are the reason why you can deliver and offer that service, right? Because if you're in love with the doing of your work, you should probably just go get a job doing it for somebody else, right? And I think that's kind of why some people get stuck in those capabilities, right? That they are more interested in the capability acquisition and the performing of that work, and not interested or there's limiting beliefs around their ability to go out there and do sales and marketing and have those difficult conversations and hire people and take risks, right? And I think E-Myth gives a good, honest look at those two parts of the business, and it lets you assess, am I willing to go all in on this business, which means not just focusing on the capabilities, but on the entire business and driving it that way. It's one that's, as I've reread it, has had lots of repeat lessons and new lessons buried inside those pages.
Yeah, I think that's one of the most challenging transformations that I've seen for agency owners, to move from like individual contributor to business owner. But yeah, awesome. Last question: where can people find you if they want to learn more?
Awesome. Well, you can check out our funnel hub at agencycoach.com. But we also set a special link for listeners here, agencycoach.com/forward. And we've got a couple of resources for you there. If you're an agency owner, you're going to have access to some of our amazing free training that'll help you get in the right mindset to start building some of that recurring revenue and putting yourself on the path of creating time and financial freedom. You know, it's a recipe, guys, right? Having financial freedom just means that you have more recurring revenue every month than the expenses that you have. And so it's just a process of building that up, and we'd like to show you how to do that. So that's agencycoach.com/forward.
Awesome. All right, Mike, AJ, thanks for joining.
Chris, thanks for having us. This has been a pleasure.
Yeah, this has been awesome. Thanks so much, Chris.
That's the show, everyone. You can leave a rating and review, or you can do something that benefits you. Click the link in the show notes to subscribe to Agency Forward on Substack. You'll get weekly content, resources, and links from around the internet to help you drive your agency forward.